Every single one of us have the energy, the heart, the soul, the talent, everything they need to be the person that they want to be. They don't really need to have any more information. We don't need to give them any more information. So we really don't. We just ask them the questions that help draw out what means something to them. What are the lessons they need to learn? Where do they need to shift their attention? And it works every time because the answers are coming from them.
Hello and welcome back to Film Pro Productivity and Success, the podcast that helps film professionals, filmmakers and other creatives to live a more focused, effective and happy life. My name is Carter Ferguson and this is episode 81, Planning Your Best Year Yet, Part 1. If you don't design your own life plan, chances are you'll fall into someone else's plan. And guess what they have planned for you? Not much. Jim Rohn. Unquote. Howdy folks, how's it going? I hope you're having a great December so far in 2020 when this goes out, and how time flies when we are having fun in COVID land, eh? Well, maybe not. Now, this was going to be the last episode of the season, but it's become a lot more than that as, well, partly because this is the first full episode that I've recorded since becoming part of the fantastic Indie Film Hustle podcast network. And you might have noticed I've added the word filmmakers to the intro there. At least I think I said the word out loud. I thought about it as I went through it. And I actually don't know why I didn't do that before, because this show really always was primarily aimed at filmmakers, and I hope that other creatives would come on board to listen. So that I'm going to keep that little addition that I just chucked in there at the last minute as I was recording this. But yeah, this is part one of a two-parter split over now and another show on the 27th. It was going to just go out on the 27th as a single episode, but I've tackled this topic before in a single episode. It was my special 2 years ago, and I don't think I did it justice then. And it's such an important and powerful system that I really, really, really want to bring it to you again, and hopefully can encourage a few more of you to put it into action in the year ahead. For new listeners that have come on board via the network, let me tell you a little bit about the show, perhaps, first. In this show, I take the best of the productivity and efficiency techniques, tips and tricks from the business and lifestyle worlds, as well as the experiences, mistakes largely, and lessons and solutions that I've found myself in a 25-year career as a professional fight arranger working in television and film. And I bring those lessons and ideas, etc., to those working in the creative industries through this show. And the show is primarily aimed at filmmakers, as I said, and those working in film and television, and it include actors and videographers, because there's an awful lot of them listening to the show, and I realise I get a lot of interaction from that sort of fan base as well. But the topics that I tackle are usually broad enough to help anyone who wants to listen. I do the show because I've had my own ups and downs along the way in life and in work, and I want to help you to avoid the same mistakes that I have made. To some extent, I also cover mental health issues, but the focus is very much on productivity and success, whatever that word success means to you. And if you like what you hear, then look back over the 80 or so episodes that have already been done, that are already available for a topic that appeals to you, and get listening. And if you can't find what you're looking for and are struggling with something in particular, then please also feel free to drop me a line and suggest a topic. 2020 was very much a year of overcoming challenges and disruption, and of making the best, I think, of what we had. What I can say now, looking back, is that it wasn't all bad. In fact, I found opportunities in the midst of it and used the forced lockdown time, some 6 months or so with no work, to better myself and gain a little bit of ground in areas where I had certainly been struggling. The opportunity to slow down and take stock was something that along the way I really started to regard as a bit of a gift. In fact, I've got to add there that I've recently returned to work, and on a couple of occasions had wished that there was another 6 months off for me to indulge myself in some of my own goals and hobbies and things like that. But anyway, that's an aside. Pivoting is not the end of the disruption process, but the beginning of the next leg of your journey. J. Sammet, unquote. And the buzzword for me this year was pivot, and that meant, about halfway through the year, the abandonment of many of my previously set goals and objectives, which had been planned out as part of my best year yet plan for 2020. I just listened, in fact, to episode 52, where I set out some of the stuff that I'd planned on doing with the show and listed 5 shows I was going to release, none of which actually happened. And I also, sadly, gave the assurance that 2020 was going to be your best year yet. But, well, I take that back. I really do. It did not go according to plan. And I don't think many of us had our best year, although I think many of us did make the best of it. I certainly didn't achieve everything that I set out in my best year yet plan, but I did still achieve quite a lot of it, even in a terrible year like 2020. Let me now offer up a new prediction that if you listen up and get going on what I will be setting out today in 2020, for 2021, that is, I'm going to offer up that will be your best year yet. And this episode and the next are about planning a strategy to achieve your goals in the year ahead. And I'm not saying you won't have to pivot along the way, but if you start with a strategy created using this system, Jinny Ditzler's Best Year Yet system, and the blueprint that it will help you create for what you are seeking to achieve, then your likelihood of achieving it will be greatly improved. Amazon describes your best year yet as the perfect guide to help you realise goals and overcome last year's limitations. The proven methods laid out within it will make this new year into your most successful ever. Simply put, your best year yet is a handbook to help people realise their goals over the next 12 months. I've talked about it in 2 previous shows, as I mentioned. I think it was episode 17 or 18 or thereabouts. It was another New Year special. And again, I spoke about it in episode 52, which is right at the start of this year. But today, I'm going to delve once more into this incredibly powerful system that will enable you to plan out your strategy to correct the failures and missed opportunities that have come before and help you to plan and navigate through a new year of success and happiness. And at the end of this episode too, I'll be doing something I've not done before. I'll be telling you how you can win one of 5 copies of the book. It's a competition only for listeners to Film Pro Productivity and Success, so stay tuned for that one. 5 copies, your odds of winning one are really pretty darn good. Awareness brings its own reward. Shifting your attention to what you have accomplished in the past year awakens your can-do attitude and gets you back in touch with your ability to make things happen. Jinny Ditzler, unquote. Now, I'm shortening a 200-page book here, so I'm going to cut to the chase on a lot of this stuff, but in the end, what we are aiming to do over these 2 episodes is to create a single-page document which will detail your goals and a few other elements that you will need to make these goals become a reality. And once we've created that document, I will talk about how you can make it all happen. The full title of the book is Your Best Year Yet, 10 questions for making the next 12 months your most successful ever, as Jinny Ditzler asks 10 tough questions for us to answer to have our best year. The new year is almost with us, so take your time to answer the 10 questions and to develop a plan of what you'd like to achieve in the upcoming 12 months. If you're listening to this show in the middle of the year, by the way, don't worry. Your best year can start any time you choose. And if you choose to start it tomorrow or next week and it's June or October, that's fine. Just set the date and begin. The questions set out by Jinny, which I'll be detailing in these episodes, are as follows. Number 1, what did you accomplish over the past 12 months? Number 2, what were my biggest disappointments? Number 3, what did I learn? Number 4, how do I limit myself and how can I stop? Number 5, what are my personal values? Number 6, what roles do I play in life? Father, wife, teacher, student, writer, consultant, and so on. Number 7, which role is my major focus for the next 12 months? Number 8, what are my goals for the next year? Number 9, what are my top 10 goals for the next year? And number 10, how can I make sure that I achieve them? Your answers to these questions will be condensed into a one-page plan for the year ahead. And it won't be easy and it won't take 5 minutes, but it will be enlightening and it will be motivational for you to take this on. In the words of Diamond Dallas Page, though, don't just think it, ink it. This is not a brain exercise. So if you don't write this stuff down, then I promise you now, it won't happen. You might even want to listen to the shows a couple of times to get the best out of them. And to help you with the whole thing, I'm going to make a downloadable best year yet planning sheet available at filmproproductivity.com, where the full show notes for these episodes can be found. Also, as I mentioned a second ago, this exercise takes a little bit of time to sort out. Jenny suggests a single uninterrupted sitting of 3 hours, but personally I prefer to tackle it in several sittings over a few days to allow me to consider what I'm writing and help me to clarify my thoughts. Some of these questions will really open up your mind to stuff you haven't considered in years, if at all. And today we will be looking at the first 5 questions, as there's a lot to consider. In the next episode I'll cover the final 5 and, perhaps more importantly, how we plan to put these into action and actually make them happen. Question number 1 is, what did I accomplish last year? This chapter starts with a quote from John Roger, who says, "Increasing your self-esteem is easy. Simply do good things and remember you did them." The author urges us to write down absolutely everything when we do this section, even the small things. And you'll find that even though you felt that you've achieved nothing, when you break it down and consider it more specifically, you'll have no doubt achieved far more than you believed. This is why I spread this exercise over days. Incidentally, it's not unusual for me to forget I've achieved some massive thing, but in the moment when I go to write it down, I've forgotten all about it because time has moved on and it's slipped my mind. Some examples from the book, hold on, I'll grab the book, would be as follows. Did you get through another year of school? What were the best times? Did you move house? Did you decorate or repair the one that you have? Did you have a good clear out? Did you take things to Oxfam? Did you start a new job to get a promotion? Have you been doing a better job at work? What deserves a pat on the back? It asks. How much money did you earn last year? Did you pay off some of your debts? Did you manage to put some more in a deposit account? Did you get married? Did you have a child? Did one or more of your children have a good year? Get over a rough patch? Have you been a better parent this year? Did you finally start to get fit? Are you exercising even a little bit more than you did? How do your clothes feel compared to the beginning of the year? Are they a little bit looser? Have you started to eat more healthily? Have you been in touch with old friends more this year? Did you make some new ones? Have you been a better friend to the ones you have? Did you start to do more enjoyable things? Concerts? Well, doubt that. This was written before 2020. Reading, though, or films, seeing friends. Are you doing a better job of keeping in touch with absent family members and friends? That's just a few examples. The book also says that we start with the positives because the human condition these days is very much focused on the negative, and that can't be denied, I don't think. Remember the quote I gave earlier? Awareness brings its own reward. Shifting your attention to what you have accomplished in the past year awakens your can-do attitude and gets you back in touch with your ability to make things happen. And I often talk about the cycle of productivity on this show and how it is short-circuited if we miss the acknowledgement part out. I learned that lesson from this book, which describes missing out the praise section of the cycle as a dangerous shortcut. The full cycle of productivity, for reference, is 1. Create, decide, start. 2. Take action. 3. Complete. And 4. Acknowledge and give praise. Jinny writes, praise and appreciation for the good news make all the difference. We feel stronger and more naturally motivated, and there's less of that needy part of us, always trying to prove ourselves and hoping someday we'll notice. Unquote. So take a bit of time to write down what you have achieved in the last 12 months before you move on. The second question Jinny asks, quite naturally, is, what were my biggest disappointments? And she illustrates this with a quote from James Joyce. Mistakes are the portals of discovery. And I've covered this topic of self-analysis quite thoroughly in this last season, and it's hammered home again here. If you keep making the same mistakes, then you are never going to get anywhere fast. And questions you might ask yourself are, hold on, I need the book again. I put post-it notes in. Here they are. But questions you might ask here for what are your biggest disappointments are, what dreams didn't come true? What expectations weren't fulfilled? Did you want a pay rise, a promotion, a new job? Did you promise to get yourself out of debt only to get in deeper? Were you hoping to find a new man or woman in your life? Did you want to get married to the person that you're with, but it didn't happen? Were you hoping for the birth of a child? Did you lose a loved one, either to separation or death? Do your clothes fit the same or even tighter? Did you start an exercise program and let it lapse and now find yourself disgusted with the way you feel? Did someone who was kind and loving turn off the tap unexpectedly? Were you hoping for a great holiday only to see the plans change? Were you hoping to go to school? Did you hope for a bit more time to yourself to read, to meditate, to paint, to write, to think, to stare into space? I think we had plenty of that in 2020. But what else? And these are generic samples they give. But one for me is I had planned to complete a first draft of a script, which I've not done. I'm not saying I'm not going to finish it. I've got, this is the 30th of November, as I say, I've got time to complete this. Unfortunately, I've got a ton of podcast stuff to do as well, and that is the biggest. Although I've achieved my great success with the podcast this year, it is at the cost of me completing other goals. So that's just an interesting kind of observation there. That's one of my disappointments, but it's because I achieved something else that I didn't achieve that one. So it's an interesting situation to be in. Anyway, did you feel yourself let down? Did events transpire against you, and what went wrong? Discovering the truth through this analysis and accepting it will provide you with a great release, and doing it inside this best year yet context will show you a clearer way ahead. In an upcoming episode, the one on Stoicism that I put aside, you'll learn that what happens, happens. The only thing that we control is how we respond to what happens to us. So accept your failures so that you can make plans to avoid them happening in future. The successes are great and we can enjoy them, but the failures should be looked upon as character builders and lessons to be learned from. I'd think in terms of failing your way forward to success, and try not to get burned out by the smackdowns that you've taken along the way. And that leads us to question 3, which is, what did I learn? Think about what you've learned over the past year. These can be life lessons that you've actually learned and put into practice, or lessons you could learn given what happened. The opening paragraph to this chapter reads, look back over the answers to the first 2 best year yet questions to see what you've learned. In reviewing what you've accomplished, what possible lessons do you see? Can you now see that the secret of your success is in those answers? What worked, and why were you able to achieve what you did? When you look at the answers to the second question, can you see now what didn't work and why? What might have worked better? What's the lesson from each disappointment? Have you actually learned that lesson yet? Is there evidence that proves you've learned the lesson? And what is that evidence? Consider it all very thoroughly. And remember, you should be taking hours to do this exercise. These are not questions you need to answer right now during this podcast, unless you're hitting pause, that is. Once you've answered the question, what did I learn? You can now rewrite your responses in the form of clear, straight advice to yourself. For example, accept fair criticism and act on it. Or don't give up too easily. Don't rely on others who will let you down. Or let me down. I've written that in the past, to be honest, now that I read it. Do the difficult tasks first. Don't waste money on equipment I don't need. That's another one of my personal ones. Any filmmakers listening will definitely know that one. And keep going with this sort of analysis until you feel that you've mined all the gold available from your experience of the last year, from these questions you've asked yourself, as turning these lessons into formal guidelines is an important part of the Best Year Yet strategy. This chapter eventually asks you to choose which 3 lessons make the most, or would make the most difference to you if you followed them in the next year of your life. I'll say that again. Which 3 lessons would make the most difference to you if you followed them in the next year of your life? Select your top 3 lessons and write them again. These 3 lessons will be your personal guidelines for the next year. Start each of them with a verb like do, make, or write, and make them as short and as memorable as possible. They will be there on the wall. You'll pin these up at the end of all this, but make them short and easy to remember as possible, because it just makes your life easier. Question 4 is principally, how do I limit myself? But it also asks, in which areas of my life am I not achieving what I want? What has that negative influence cost me? What do I say about myself to explain these failures? In order to have a best year yet, you need to make sure the way you're thinking about yourself and your goals empowers you to succeed. This isn't as difficult as it sounds, though, and the book actually makes it quite simple. Your answers to the last part of this question, what do I say about myself to explain my failures, constitutes what it calls your limiting self-beliefs or limiting paradigm. What results do you achieve by holding these points of view, might be the question. Where do they lead you? Remember that your thoughts and beliefs can easily become self-fulfilling prophecies. And remember, too, the words of Brian Tracy, you become what you think about most often. If you keep telling yourself excuses, you will come to believe them and you will never change. If you constantly think, I'm not good enough, your confidence will falter and you won't even try, for example. So when you've answered the initial question, how do I limit myself? And I'd imagine here you might come up with a few things. Then you must ask yourself which of these answers is the strongest negative influence on you at this point in your life. Which one really hits the nail on the head? As that is the one you need to work on, because what you focus on is what you get. Remember, what you focus on is what you get. So decide how you limit yourself, look at your list, decide what is the main problem you've got, and focus on it. That way you can overcome it. And this is quite a big chapter in the book, and it explores in depth how you might limit yourself and your goals. In the end, though, it has you write a new self-belief that knocks the old one on the head. For example, you might have written, I'm scared of making changes. And this could change to, I'm able to go beyond my limitation, or whatever I put my mind to, I can achieve. Make sure your new self-belief is personal and positive, powerfully stated, and pointing to an exciting new possibility. It should also be in the present tense, and this is a vital part of the whole exercise, and it will be referred to from now on as your new empowering paradigm, which acts as a kind of tailor-made affirmation to refer to throughout the upcoming year. Question 5 is, what are my personal values? This chapter asks, what drives you? What is your life pursuit? What values represent who you are? What values do you demonstrate? What do you want to happen as a result of your interaction with others? What effect do you want to have on others? Think about what's most important to you in your life. Personal values are values such as integrity, honesty, compassion for others, keeping promises, taking care of yourself, respect, and these values provide the strongest motivation within you for change. Put some thought into it and make a list of your own. And I have to say that this short chapter had a profound influence on me when I first tackled it, as I realised I hadn't considered what my values were for a very, very long time. But by answering this question, in fact, by even just considering it, I was able to rediscover the radar, or perhaps better put, the compass of my life, and make decisions more easily. One of the decisions that I took with this in mind was to remove the people from my life that actively worked against my values. And one individual in particular worked in a way which was so much at odds with my values about respect and the treatment of others, that the act of cutting him away immediately made my life happier and more productive. And I've talked in previous shows about removing toxic people from your life, so go back and listen to them if you've not heard them. They're really very popular episodes, because knowing what your values are makes this process, and the process of deciding what projects you go forward with, and how you're going to run them, and how you run your day-to-day life and make decisions, it makes it all much, much easier if you know what your values are. So think about your values and start writing them down. This exercise alone, honestly, will change your life. So today I've covered, and your call to action this week is to start considering the answers to these 5 questions. Get a head start on the exercise 2 by writing them down. I'll round them all up again in the next show. But the first 5 that we've considered today were, what did I accomplish over the past 12 months? What were my biggest disappointments? What did I learn from questions 1 and 2? How do I limit myself, and how can I stop? And what are my personal values? In the next show, which comes out in 2 weeks' time, I'm going to cover the final 5, which are, what roles do I play in my life? That could be father, wife, director, editor, teacher, student, artist, consultant, so on. Which of these roles is my major focus for the next 12 months is the next question. What are my goals for the next year? What are my top 10 goals for the next year? Because believe you me, your goals are going to be more than 10. You get them all down there, then you've got a starting point to cut them down to 10 goals only, which is the kind of final question on the list, which refers to assessing yourself. And the final number 10 question is, how can I make sure that I achieve them? Which is a very, very important one. Otherwise, this is just an academic exercise. Every time that we choose action over ease or labour over rest, we develop an increasing level of self-worth, self-respect, and self-confidence. In the final analysis, it is how we feel about ourselves that provides the greatest reward from any activity. It's not what we get that makes us valuable. It's what we become in the process of doing that brings value into our lives. It's an activity that converts human dreams into human reality. And that conversion from idea into actuality gives us a personal value that can come from no other source. Jim Rohn, unquote. So, as I mentioned at the start of this episode, I am running a competition to win one of 5 copies of this book, of Your Best Year Yet, between now and the next show, and you can enter it right Now, all you have to do is firstly go to filmproproductivity.com, the main website, and hit subscribe. I'll put a subscribe button, really obvious, right at the top of the page so you can't miss it. And that'll allow me to send you very occasional updates that you can unsubscribe from at any time. And I think, as a note, I don't think I've ever sent out an update yet, but I'm going to tackle this in a future episode. I've realised recently that social networking is kind of not doing me any good. That's a lesson I've learned. And I want to focus on building some email lists, because I think that'll help me to reach my audience and give me a bit more power to my elbow when I'm doing a little bit of promotion. I haven't taken advantage of it yet, but part of this competition is just to go there and subscribe. That will give me your email address, but as I say, you can opt out at any point. And the other thing that I want you to do is to subscribe to the show on the app of your choice. Many of you listening have probably already done it, but what I'd like you to do is screen grab that and post it to social media with a link to where your friends can listen to the show. If you'd like to say something nice about the show as well, that would be good. And do me a favour and copy me into that post in whatever social network you decide to put it on. I'm very much involved on Twitter. I've got a Facebook page, which is at filmproproductivity, I think. And I'm on Instagram as fight_director. The Twitter account is at filmproprodpod. I'm making a right meal of this. But anyway, I'll pull the winners out of a virtual hat in 2 weeks' time. So it's only running for 2 weeks, this one. And I'll send the prizes out to you via Amazon to arrive hopefully before the end of the year. So that's 5 copies up for grabs, and you can get them digitally, by the way. You can go for Kindle copy, you can get a physical copy, I don't mind. But it's 5 copies up for grabs, and only minimal effort required on your part to enter. If it wasn't clear there, subscribe on the website, filmproproductivity.com, and screen grab your subscription, or just a picture of you listening to the show would be fine, and chuck it onto social media. That's all you have to do, and I'll find it. And I'll randomly choose some winners, and your odds should be pretty darn good with 5 copies going on the go. The benefits to the show, of course, will be very considerable, and if this goes well, I will be giving out more prizes in future shows. If you're already subscribed to the website, by the way, I'll know, so don't panic on that count. Let me end today, though, with some more words from Napoleon Hill, who I did a 6-part series on, I think 3 seasons ago, I don't remember. But he said, "Today is the first day of the rest of your life. Are you satisfied with where you are and the direction you're going? If not, take control of your life and change whatever needs to be changed. You, and only you, have the power to do this. You can change your world." So have a great Christmas, folks, when it comes. Take control of your own destiny. Keep on shooting, and join me next time for part 2 of Planning Your Best Year Yet on Film Pro Productivity and Success. The music that you can hear right now is Adventures by Ehimitsu. You can view the show notes for this episode on the official website at filmproproductivity.com, and you can follow my personal accounts on Twitter and Instagram at fight_director, or follow the show itself on Twitter at filmproprodpod, or on Facebook at filmproproductivity. Check out the rest of the shows from the IFH network at ifhpodcastnetwork.com, and please support the show by subscribing, spreading the word, and leaving an awesome review.